The inlay material that we use is a holly veneer. It comes in sheets, veneer sheets. You can get it a 32nd, and sometimes you can get it a 16th. I got this from Domex Hardwoods. It was a sheet maybe about that long and about that wide. It's about $50. So it's not cheap, but if you want some thick veneer for your inlays, that's what you have to do. Now, let's talk about how we just make a simple stringing inlay. We're going to put a piece of holly in like that. What do we need for a tool? Well, I made an original table I used this. This is a scratch stock. There's a tiny little tooth stuck there, made out of a piece of card scraper. Tiny little tooth. And it's in this little block of wood. And you just put it here and just put it down, see? And you just drag it. And pretty soon you've got a groove. And that's the way it was originally done. So this is a pretty cheap tool and works pretty fast. I'll leave this up here, and when we're done, you can come up and try it. There's a second groove here that I've started, but it isn't done all the way. So that's how you can make the groove. Later, I'm going to show you how to do it with the router, but I just thought I'd show you the original way as a way of talking about it to get it started. Now, once you have the veneer, you've got to get it thicknessed. There's the thickness for these string here, 3/64, or about 47 thousandths, and that is looks like to me, I find, is a nice number. I know that Roger Myers likes 32nd of an inch. They're really fine, and you get 32nd of an inch veneer, so that'll work for you. But I like the little fatter one. A 16th of an inch just looks too thick. Doesn't look quite right. So now I'll just show you quickly. I'm going to just glue this in here. So what we need to do is just put a little glue in there, and we can just stick in the piece of holly and we'll let it dry. Let me get my glue. Where's my glue over here? No, this is what I need. Sorry about that. So you got a very little groove, very tight little groove to put it in, so it helps to have a little glue syringe. This is just a little plastic syringe, and I keep it in water so that it doesn't dry out the glue. And now I'm just going to put that in here, and I'll just run down a strip of glue.
Is that just PVA glue?
This is white glue. I don't use, I'm not sure what it is chemically, but it's white glue.
Okay.
The reason I use white glue is that there's no glue line with the white glue. There we go. And I just put it back in my water there to keep it dry. And now we just put this in here.
It isn't yellow.
It's not like a polyurethane.
And there it goes.
I think it's a PVC. I think it's a polyurethane.
We'll just put that aside and let it dry, and we'll deal with it again later. I should say, in thicknessing, this 16th, how do you thickness it? Well, what I did with a larger piece, I taped one end of it down to a piece of MDF, and I ran it through my drum sander, very slow, just lightly, just tight. And I have a little gauge here that's got the 3/64th groove cut in it. And so as I was doing it, I would try it on the piece of wood and say, that's too tight. That's a little too tight. You don't want it that tight. You want it to be fairly loose so it goes in, because when you put the glue in there, it'll swell. And that extra thousandth or two that you take off works out very well. Now let's see. take a leg here. Let's see about, where's that leg? Here it is. I'll try showing you how to do it now with the router. Yeah, we can do it on this side here. I'm just going to clamp this in the vise. By the way, if you're going to go to work on table legs, having a vise like this is a big plus. We'll just clamp this leg in here. Yeah. Now, the router needs to be, what did I do with that? Let me see. I had my 1/4 inch, there it is, 1/8 inch. The general shape that we do is we put the stringing 1/8 of an inch in from the edge of the leg. And so I need to set this router to 1/8 of an inch. Now you try and do that with a ruler, but frankly, having a setup block like this is well worth the price. These things are very, very useful, and you get a perfect thing. So all I have to do is put it up against the fence, push it up against the blade, and tighten the screw. Okay. There it is. And so I'm exactly 1/8 of an inch in from the fence. So these things aren't cheap, but they're worth their weight in gold when you're starting to do accurate work. And they're very great for setting up the router, router bit heights, and things, all that sort of thing. I'm not sure if you can see this too well, but this is a 3/64 inch bit. And it's extended down about 3/32. Generally, I cut my strips about 1/8 of an inch wide, so that gives me another 32nd. Being proud, this one's gonna be. I don't have one cut for that size today, but we'll just work it. Now I'm just gonna put this on here, and I'm gonna run along. I'm not gonna worry about getting to a stop. This has a light on it too, so I can turn the light on. We have editing. So here we are with a groove. I wobbled just a little bit. You got to be real careful when you do this, but I didn't have a good balance, so I got a little boo-boo there. But now you see you've got all this sawdust in here. So this little curve tool gets the sawdust out. If you don't have the curve tool, how do you get the sawdust out? Well, you make a curve tool. So that's it. Now that's a lot faster than the scratch stock, and it's a lot faster than using this thing too. But there it is, and now of course we'll be ready to glue in a piece of. That was a little fat.
Bruce, do you have a source where you get those router bits from?
Oh yes, the router bits. It's in the handout.
Yep.
Drill Technologies. In fact, I'll hand one around so you can look at it, just so you see. I had one here to hand around.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a 32nd of an inch bit.
What size bit you're using now?
3/64, about 47 thousandths.
Yeah, that's cool.
3/64. So that's cutting the groove. There you go.
Who's the manufacturer of the Dremel?
I'm sorry. The Dremel is. Shut the light off too. This is a Dremel. This is a Veritas, Lee Valley. It's their plunge-based router. It's in the part numbers in the handout, but it's just great. You can do it up and down, slide it in and out. Everything you need to do is done with that. So I guess that pretty much takes care of
Down cut.
the basics of cutting a groove.
Down cut bit.
Let's see what comes next. What do I have here next? Let's see what my notes say.
I can't even see it.
Okay. Well, let's talk about we'll talk about curve stringing now. If you look at your handout, you'll see there is some curve stringing there. And the problem with curve stringing is how do you're going to obviously use a compass of some sort. But with a compass, where do you put what's the radius that you need? Now, if you look at can you see this diagram okay?
Yep.
All right. Here's the piece of curve stringing, okay? This is the length that I want. So I look on my table and I say, well, how long do I want this curve to be? And we decided that for this table, 3 1/4 inches was fine, good length. That's what that is there, and in the pictures. Now, this length here, this is the leg stringing, okay, on the edge. So now I've got to move in a certain distance, and how far do I need to go? Well, so here, I have a center line down here. Oh, I should have put the eighth. Should have milled these. Let's do that so you can see it better. So. By the way, when you're running this thing, it's like any other router. If you run it from left to right, this way, then of course if you run it from right to left, which is what we really should do, the bit's going around this way. So you know about the force on the bit's going to push it against the fence as you cut. If you come this way, it has a tendency to push it away, and that's what happened to me down on that other one. So we'll do it this way. So the cut will be pushed against the fence as we run it, and then we'll just do it back down the other way. Turn on the light. Now I have a line on there that I want to stop at. And now we'll go the other way. And what I'm going to do now, I'll start it and then just sort of creep up on the line and then cut it down this way, so that I'm getting the proper rotation of the bit to and you have to turn the light out very quickly. There's 4 little watch batteries in there that run that light, and it only lasts about 10 minutes if you let it go. So I use it. You cut it. You turn it on, make your cut, and shut it off. Well, now we've got the two what'll be the 2 edge cuts for the stringing, and now we'll talk about how we line up the curve between them. That should be good enough. Yeah, okay. Now, we're gonna need some way to hold this leg so we can put the compass on there, and that's what this little jig is here. Let's see. Here we go, here we go. So we're just gonna clamp this in the vise just so that we've got it. So that's good and solid. Now the leg has a taper on it. This is the side that we're going to use. We're going to put the taper. The taper is on this edge here, and we're going to work the thing square. So what we do is we have somewhere here. I don't see it now. I got a little wedge, a little thin wedge that was with this. That goes in there.
It's right underneath there.
Yeah, I was wondering if that might be it, yeah.
Oh shoot!
Where your next finger is?
Is it
Well, I'm not.
underneath the leg?
I got it. No, that's not it.
Oh,
The actual leg you're clamping, it looks like it's underneath there?
No, it's under the jig.
Yeah.
Oh, here it is. Yeah, I got it. That's good. I got it. Fine. It was hiding. So now I put this in on the tapered side so that I can get the leg pretty well square. Now this particular jig, I made this jig. Well, I know when Roger taught his class, he just had one he just clamped together with some wedges, but I tend to like to make things work a little bit better. So I make them adjustable so that they're useful.
You won't show Roger that.
Yeah, I know. Don't tell Roger that. Well,
That's gonna end up on the cutting room floor.
okay. So anyway,
Maybe.
so there is that's the jig, and I can now slide this back and forth. I have here, where's my compass right there, the compass. Now we had figured out that the dimension of the radius should be 2 inches. So I've got this set just about 2. It should be set just about 2 inches. The hair under was like 195 or something like that. So this is pretty much the right radius. What we need to do is to get it approximately right, because you can fudge it as you do it, as you're going along. So that's where it's going to be, and I got to just move this a little
Where
bit.
did you get that very nice compass?
Oh, I'm not sure. I got it online somewhere. It was about $20. Let me just show you how you figure out where the compass is going to go. First, I'll show you. We know that we want the thing to be 3.5 inches. So I'm going to start up here, and I'll mark down here 3.5 inches. 3.25 inches, I'm sorry, 3.25. So there's 3.25 right about there. So now if I put the compass in this end and swing an arc, and I put the compass in here at 3.25 and swing an arc, the X is where the compass needs to go. So if I put the compass now on that X, you see it starts right at this corner, it goes over, and it's just about halfway between the center line and the groove, and then I'm going to come down, and I'm not going to go all the way here with the cut. I'm going to stop it, but the point is that is the proper arc. And you see, if you do the calculation, you get it right on the money. All right. So now what I'm going to do, I have here compass locations, which I've used for the other table, and I'm going to just use those. So what I need to do is to move this up. This is the fixed one, so I'm going to set that so that I'm right on that point, and then this one, I can move the piece of wood over. So that's pretty close right there. And now we'll clamp this thing.
how How did you find out the point on the jig for the compass?
Just a second, let me just get this up and then I'll answer your question.
Did you get it?
Then I can bring this up flush, put this down flush, so everything is flush, and I've got a nice big surface here to run that router on.
From where you wanna start,
Okay,
and then you strike an arc 3¼ inches away from where you wanna end up.
3¼ from both sides, okay, I
Or
got
an
you now.
inch end, and then you put your point, your compass on that,
Right there, yeah,
that
yeah,
intersection.
Let's
and
double
you
check.
Go between those two.
gotcha, that makes sense.
That's good. That's good too, okay. Now, what was the question?
Actually, we just talked amongst ourselves, I think he solved it for me, thanks.
Oh, okay, all right. So that's, yeah, that's good. So this is all nice and flush, and now we got the locations. We can trace now the compass lines on here. So if I start here, I'll trace this compass line. And this one.
The real trick is, how do you come up with the 3¼ inches?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I think as I look at
I
this,
assume that's a
it,
square.
they intersect nicely on the center line, but this is a little, yeah, they're pretty close, they're pretty close. Now, down here, I'm gonna find, I'm gonna find about halfway here. See, 'cause I'm gonna stop it right about halfway between the center line and the edge. So that's where I'm going to stop it. And now I'm going to just draw a line across there. This is the square edge of that square there, so I can put my, no, I don't, what's that, wrong one, too small. Give it a 6-inch square. Actually, what you find is that you don't want it actually dead square because you want it to be more or less. I'm going to just put it on square here today because it won't make any difference. But what you need to do is to make this line perpendicular to the center line. Okay, you want to make that perpendicular, and you can do it. But we'll just do it. Now you see I've got an intersection here with the curve and that line. So I'm going to, when I cut this curve, I'm going to stop there. When I cut this curve, I'm going to stop here. And then what I'm going to do, I'll just show to continue the layout here. I'm going to put the compass in here. Now this is a little bit different D. See, the D is a little bit different here because the leg is tapered. So now you can just fudge it. See, well, originally you've got to do the calculation to find these locations, but I've already done that. So now I'm just going to set the compass right on the on that intersection, and now I can do this and come over here and do this. And you see you now have basically the same thing again. And now down here you got to do you'd have to repeat the same thing down here. But we'll just do these up here. Save a little time. So now I got to set the radius. Well, what I have to do is to take this fence off and put on the compass. Okay, now let's see if it matches. A bit to the pencil, yeah. That's right. So now what we do is we're gonna just run that arc. I'm gonna start here in this point, and I'm gonna stop when I get to this line here. That's where the end of the curve wants to be. So I gotta put this in there, put this in there. It's not quite. Let me just see. You want to you can just fudge this till it fits just right. Okay, there we go. And now I'm going to cut that around. There's the starter. So there's that arc. Now, I don't cut the other arc now. We only cut the arcs on one side. I'll explain that in a second. But I'll try cutting this other groove, and what I'm going to do is just put the, loosen up the compass, put the bit in the end of the hole that I just made, and then set this in the
Or else he started off the edge.
there.
I think he's
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. He's got to start in the groove. Yeah. In this groove. Yeah.
Just get that in there right. That's that, and that's in there. And so now I can just lock this down, and I'm going to cut the next one. Okay, so now we've got two grooves. And now what we need to do is to put the stringing in those grooves. The problem, in fact, I'm going to make a little mark here where I can see the mark. This end of this jig lines up right about with that line there, which is good. The problem is, if you try to cut them all, how do you match them at the crossover where they intersect, where the two curves intersect? So what you do is you put in, what you do is you do one side, put in the holly, and then you cut the other side, and now the match, the intersection is perfect. We have other little tool here too, that little black one there. It's basically a little chisel. It's just basically the width of the groove, so you can get down in and get in the corners here and get it cleaned out. So that's it. You got to be careful here. I got a little chip out there, but I'm not going to worry about it today. Right there, a little piece of wood. When I was cleaning that out, I split that out. So let's see if we can think about putting in a piece of stringing in here. This one is going to be fit. Yeah. Now we got to cut this down. We got to cut this down a little narrower size. This is a little bit too wide. And what I do is I clamp it down. I'm going to do this over here because I clamp this down to the bench under a ruler. This ruler, I'll show you here. Oh, this ruler has sandpaper on the back side. And now what I'm going to do is put this down here. And we're going to need an 1/8 inch strip. I should have done this ahead of time. Sorry about that. So what we do is put the ruler down on the holly. Set it for 1/8 of an inch, approximately. It's there. About 1/8 of an inch there. That's close enough. It's just to be sure. And then I clamp it down with the hold downs. Now that rule is tight to the holly, and I just take my take my box knife here and there are other jigs and things you can use to cut this stuff, but it's a little longer. Well, it'll be all right. Yeah, this will be fine. We got a long enough piece to do the curve. That's good. All right, I'll go back here now. We'll glue this in. Let's see how long a piece we need. Now, we need a piece to go, about like that, be plenty long enough. So we can cut that off, and we'll get it to the right length. Sharp chisel cuts it nicely. We gotta get that better cleaned out there. That little piece. Where'd that little piece go? And I just cut off a little piece. No, that's not it. It drives you crazy when things disappear like that. I don't see it on the floor either. Well, I'll just cut off another one. About like that. Oh, I'll tell you what. Let's see. No, I need the soldering iron heated. Yeah, I'll plug it in over here. Just let me see that. Oh. Plug the router. Plug in the soldering iron. All right. Put this back down in there. That's okay for holding it while we glue it. It's funny, I don't know where that little piece went that I cut off. It took a while. All right, so let's see. We need a piece that's about that, a little bit longer than that. Okay, we'll cut that there. I hope this one doesn't go flying. Now, the thing is, this is a fairly sharp curve. I could probably get that to go. I'll tell you what I'm going to need is, I guess I can use some. I just need a little water. Yeah, that's water in there. That's good enough. I'll take this out and use that water. What I'm going to do is wet this. I've seen this done a dozen times, and nobody says wet it. I've tried it a dozen times, and it didn't work. I had no luck at it at all. And then I saw somebody do it, and they wet it. And I thought about it, and I said, well, that makes sense. And we'll wait for this to heat up. And what you can do is when you wet it, you can run the along the heat and it'll bend. So now you have most of the tension taken off and you'll be good. We should have hit this hotter sooner. It's going to take a minute for that to get hot. Meanwhile, I'm just going to check the temperature of the sand over here.
I think you pulled the plug.
No, take it, look, yeah. Straight up and down. 352, it's a little cool. We'll try that.
Bruce, I think you pulled the plug out over here. Or is that plugged in over there?
For the heating.
That's plugged in there,
Okay.
and the plug I took out was the router, and the soldering iron's in there now. It's getting warmer. Let's see. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to just put this around the and heat this. Just sort of coax it along.
That's the compression side, Bruce, or does it matter with that thin of material?
I'm sorry?
That's the compression side, not the tension side.
Oh, I don't know. I just picked it up. Well, if you can do it on the correct tension side, but it really doesn't make too much difference. Yeah, see now? We got the curve. I'll take that out of there and unplug it. So now this almost matches. So now I can put this in here, coax it around in the groove. Come on, get in there. Oh, this is a little bit fat.
Because it swelled up with the water?
Well, it probably swelled up with the water a little bit. What I do then, if it's a little too fat, come on. Where's my card scraper? I had a card scraper here.
I got it right here. Nope, it's not a card scraper.
No, that's okay. I got another one. I think I had it, but I sharpened it.
Before.
Oh, here it is.
Yeah.
All right. So if it's just too fat, I just give it a little scrape. You can take off, so it drops down in there. This is another one of those things. How do you fit it? Well,
Did you also do it with sandpaper?
yeah, you could, but the card scraper is a lot easier. Yeah, there we go. There we go. So I'm going to butt this end up here, and then I'm going to coax it in here. Coax it in, coax it in, coax it in. And when I get down this end here, I have to see where do I have to cut it off. So what I'm going to do is cut it off right on the line. So I make a little line right like that. And I mark it. And it's basically 45. So now what I'm going to do is put that down here. This little jig here. I can hold the stringing up tight against that edge there. Because normally you're doing it. And then get your chisel right in your line there. There it is. And up tight. If you hold the chisel tight up against the face of that thing, you can just push down and you'll get yourself a nice little 45-degree angle cut on the end. So that's how you cut those angles here. You make a little jig just like this, just to hold it so you can put the chisel, hold the chisel flush tight like that while you do your cutting. And you hold the string against the fence in here, and bingo, you got it. So now let's see. That looks good. Okay. So now we'll just push this down in here. I had a dowel over there, but I don't see it right now. It's about a 3/4 inch dowel. But you take your chisel handle, see, and just coax it down in there.
There you go.
Oh, okay. I just have a dowel I can put out here and roll it along. Push it down. That's good. And I'll just wipe the glue, excess glue off. So there's one in there. Now if I were doing my legs, I do this one and I do this one down here, okay? But we'll just let that sit. Trying to think here what I need to do next. We got to let that dry, and I'll show you where that other one where was the other one I did there? This one here. That's good. This one here. What you need to do now is to trim this down. So after it's dried. So while that's drying, see, if you're making these things, you're making you're making 3 or 4 legs. Usually I do them in pairs. I do the back legs first, because they're on the outside and you don't see them very well. You make a little mistake, it's not so noticeable, and it gives you the practice. Then you come around and do the front ones. But what you can do is work on 2. So you glue these in, then you work on the other leg. And by the time you get those glued in on the second leg, this is dry, and you can go back to the next step, which is what we're going to do right now.
There's 24 arcs. And I take like 24.
Oh, I didn't count the arcs. I know there were 48 petals, though. All right, so let's just put this back in the vise here to hold it. I'm going to just check to see which way the grains go in here. Yeah, I think we want to cut it that way. Usually, what I do, most people do, I think, is you take your block plane, and you can plane it down close. Well, let's see. See, this one is sticking up quite a bit. If you only got a 32nd of an inch proud, this just goes down with just a few strokes. We're getting there. That's getting pretty good. And when you get down, so you just got a little bit. Then what I do is I take my chisel and I pare it. So I get the flat of the chisel down on the board, and I can just and use a little slicing action as you push the chisel forward. and then a few strokes with the card scraper. And we're done. So there it is, nice and flush, smooth. Good. You can pass this. We can pass this around to the class. Let them take a look at it. Oh, here's the. Give them the. That goes in the other groove. Here. Oh, okay, that's good. Let me put that away. So that's basically how we do the stringing. It's, the cross piece, normally stringing comes down, there'll be a cross piece at the bottom. What I do is I use a knife to cut one edge, then I use a piece of the stringing. I don't have one here. Give me a little piece of that stringing. Anyone? Yeah, that's fine. You can put your chisel in the knife. Now you've got the edge here, and then take your knife and give yourself a little marking for the thickness. Okay, put that like that. That doesn't want to go well. But anyway, you hold out there and mark the other edge, and now you've got two lines for the thickness of the string. And now what you need to do is to cut those lines. You can take a chisel, but when you do it with the chisel, be sure you have the sharp edge out, that the angled edge is to the center of the ring. You can give it a few little light taps over here, a few little light taps, and then go in bevel-wise, so you get that edge doesn't get expanded. And then you can take these two little tools here and just clean it out. This one here you can just dig down, and then if you're really into it, before those things came out from Lee Valley, I got this little chisel here. This is a 332nd blue spruce chisel. You can pass it around, people can take a look at it just to see this. It's like $75 for that little sucker. So that's how we do it. Any questions about this? All right, well then let's start thinking about the pedals.
Do you need a break or what?
We're now going to talk about the doing the bellflowers. But before I do that, I'm going to just point out a couple of things that you might find interesting. The front of the table has is made up of poplar bricks, which are shaped, and then you need to put a veneer on there. Well, putting the veneer on there, you need a curved caul, and that's kind of a little problem. So I came up with this. What it is a piece of plywood that's cut through most of the way, and you see it'll bend. If you bend it too hard, it'll break. But if you have it against the apron, you just clamp it, and you can get a perfect caul. It'll match the curve. You can pass that around. People can take a look at it. Just when you make the cut, you gotta, see, don't cut it. Don't tip
The
it
trick
too
is
much.
to nick the last piece of veneer, right?
Yeah, well, I don't go quite all the way. You have to cut it so that the last layer of the plywood inside, you want the grain to be going in the direction of the cut, so it'll bend easier. If you got it cross grained, it doesn't bend as easy, right? You can bend a piece of wood this way much easier. Take the piece of veneer. Oh, I don't have one here, but you can bend it with the grain, curl it easily. Try to bend it against the grain, you got to push it much harder. So you want that thing cut so that but that works really very well. Just slap that on there, clamp it down. You can put as many clamps as you want on it, and just tighten it. And that's described in the article on how to make the table. The other thing I was going to show you about, here's some bellflowers. This is one that Steve Latta had described, and it's very nice. It's also quite complicated because what you have to do is you can cut the bellflower out, but then you got to cut the same shape out of the piece you're going to inlay it into, and that gets to be a little difficult. So it took me about 2 hours just to make that one. I didn't bother sand shading the ends of these. I did that one. On the other hand, this is the Boston and New York method of using these petals. The Boston method has the center petal in first and the side ones on top. New York put the side ones in first and the center one on top. But I like the Boston method better. And if you look, you'll see how they're sand shaded, and that works out pretty nice. You can pass that around too. People just take a close look. So now what we need to do is to get these little oval shapes. So the way we do that is we cut them with curved gouges, file gouges. And there's a diagram in the handout that shows you the size gouges that are used for each petal. It's a little bit small, but you may have to use a magnifying glass to read it, but those show the sizes. Okay. So how do we get the petals? Well, first of all, we need to cut them out. So take a strip of holly, and then what I do, I got to make a little mark here. How long do these pieces to be? Because it's better to cut them up into short pieces to start with, because otherwise, so I'm going to put the gouge down, and I'll just make a couple of little marks like that. And now I'll take the chisel, and I'm going to cut that one away. See, now when I hit this with the chisel, it takes off. So you don't want it to do that. You're looking for all over the place. So let me just let me mark that a little better so we can see it. Here's where I want to. These are the lengths that I need for the pieces to cut the petals out of. So what I do is I'm going to set this like that, put the chisel here, and then what I do, I put a piece of cloth on here to trap that little sucker. So there's one. We'll make 3 or 4. Cut out the piece with the X-Acto knife and carve it out. Well, what I do is this is a 725 gauge. I couldn't get a straight one, but I got a fishtail. The fishtail works just as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this down on the piece of wood there, and cut it. See? And now what I'm going to do is turn it around and go to the exact corner where I started, like that, and like that. And there is a petal. And sometimes you get a little bit on the end there, just nip that off. So there is one 25 millimeter petal. And so now you sit there for the rest of the afternoon making these petals.
Except they're not all the same size.
Well, no, well, that's right. So you make a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, that's the problem.
And when you think you got enough of those, you get the 720 out. Here's the 720 container. So you get the 720 chisel, and you can cut 720s exactly the same way. If you're really cheap like I am with the veneer, I don't want to waste it. I'll cut shorter pieces for these, but we won't worry about that today. I'm just going to cut that out like that. Pretty straightforward. You just have to be. Sometimes I'll put on my magnifying glasses to show that I'm right on the corners. Just stick that down underneath there if I'm going to get that out of the way. So now we've got the petals. the next thing we need to do is sand shade them. So we'll deal with the 725s. I got a couple here that we've done. I have some in here that have already been sand shaded too, so we don't have to wait to do them all. So let's go over here to the frying pan. This is a frying pan which has a 1/2 inch of very fine sand in it. This happens to be Ontario fine sand, which is about the finest. Ottawa fine sand. Ottawa fine sand, which is the finest sand known to man. And I got it from Ed got it for me from the MIT Civil Engineering Lab. Okay, so here's the hot sand. We're going to measure the temperature. It says 401. So that's about the right temperature, I find. 1/2 inch deep and about 400 degrees. And so now what we do is we're going to put this in here. Let me get my timer out. No, I don't have it here. No, it's okay. We'll just wait and watch it. So you just push it down in like that. I push it down all the way. And maybe even brush a little sand up against it, and we wait. It takes about a minute.
30 seconds.
30 seconds? We'll take one out and look at it at 30 seconds. See, it's starting to come. It usually does not darken the same on each side. Why, I don't know, but there's a difference. So that's 30 seconds. Of course, it depends on how hot the sand is, fast or slow, but there it is. That's the whole idea.
That's a minute.
That's going, yeah, that's a minute. That's pretty good. Okay. Now, for the center ones, you know the other petals are going to go up on either side on top of it. So what I usually do then is try and shade this a little bit, not as dark as that necessarily, but just to get some coloring there, so you can see the line where the intersections are. So I'm just going to sort of stick that in. I put it in usually more on a little angle, darken up there. It's a little. I do it a little bit more, but you get the idea that you get a much more gradation in it by putting it in on an angle. So that's how we do the sand shading. So that's another. Between the petals, you probably noticed that there was a little dots. Let me show you how I do that. You just need a little piece. I have this punch, which has different sends. I'm going with the biggest. I use the biggest one, which is 4 millimeters. 4 millimeters is the big one, and the next one down is the next size down is the 3.5 millimeters. Now you can buy these leather punches. In fact, you can buy straight ones. They're just a straight punch. You hit it and it comes up through the leather. For about $5, you can get a set from like 1.5 to 4 millimeters by 0.5 millimeters from Amazon. So but you need a punch like this. I ended up getting this one before I looked and saw the others. The others would probably be a little easier to use. I just get a good hold on the thing, put it over the wood, and give it a. See, and I've cut one. Now I'll cut another one. And that's how you make the little dots. That's 4 millimeters in diameter, which turns out to be, I think, 5/32 of an inch. Because I use a 5/32 inch drill, just to drill a slight hole and stick it in. Now those get sand shaded too, but that's a little more difficult because they're so small. So when you get it down at the bottom of the sand, how do you find it and get it back out? Right? Tough to find it with it'll be all brown. So I have a small hemostat here, see? And I'm just going to grab it by the edge, okay? And the hemostat. And now we can stick it in, now I can put this whole thing in the hot sand. So that's how I sand shade the little dots. Okay. So now here's the leg we're gonna stick them in. This is now dried, we can pare that down. In fact, let's just do that, just so we'll see what it looks like. When you have the two stringings in here that are both proud, the block plane sits on it very nicely, so you can take them down together. That's pretty good. And now we just, let's say we just pair it. When you're doing this, if you just lift your chisel just a hair, it'll just take that right down, dead solid, perfect. And there you have that's how you put one in. Now see, if we cut the other one this way, they'd intersect here, and see now the router would cut through the existing one, and when you put the next one in there, it's a perfect crossover joint. So you always do them one and then the other. Don't try to do them at the same time. All right, so now what we're going to do is to let's see, I should draw some lines on here so you can see what I'm doing. So that's where the curve is going to start. And here we have the compass. And that's where the side ones would end. And now what we do is I'm going to put this in here, and I'll draw. That's not right. I don't have the thing in it. Anyway, I'll just sketch it in. What we're going to do is we're going to have two curves that come down like this and come down like this. And you have to put those in first. Okay, so now that's where that tells us the start of the first, where that intersects. You're going to have a 4 millimeter pedal, so I get out about 3 millimeters, and that's where I'm going to start put my pedal in first. So let me just I'll just take the end of this to make a little dot right about there. Okay, so that's where the top of the pedal wants to be. Now, where am I? Here I am. That's a 720. 725, okay. So now you take the same chisel, you've got your center line going down here. I'll make that a little darker so you can, with the magic mouse, so you can see it. If it isn't dead center, it won't make any difference. We're just illustrating the method here. There, that's a little better. So the first one's going to be the big one. So we set the chisel down right at the start, and you set at the corner right on the line like that, and you just press down. Now I want to cut it in there. I can't. If I bang it down now, the bevel's going to push the edge out. So what I have to do is to tip the thing so the bevel is vertical, and there's half the cut. And now I do the same thing, I match it on the other way, like that. See, that's a lot easier than trying to cut those. Now, I take my X-Acto knife, and I cut this out. It's important that you have this cut down. You can just follow the chisel track, but it's important that you have it cut straight down, as deep as the pedal needs to be. I slipped a little bit off there. I thought it probably I need my glasses. Let's see better. So just get the. In fact, at the ends, you can just take the knife and just push it right down in there, because you want that end to be cut clean. So you get a nice sharp corner there. So this takes a little time. You gotta go along here. Whoops, that's not good. Take my time. You don't want to do that. You don't want to do too many of these at the same time, because you get tired. And that's probably what my problem is right now, a little bit tired. I'm rushing. Okay, well, let's see how that came out. See, now we're going to get this out of here. How do I do that?
Router.
My router. Let me get my router. So hand me the router. No, I don't need a fence on this. This is all going to be freehand, so I'll take the fence off. Because I got that nice bright light. I'll turn it around. I'll do it this way, so maybe the camera can pick it up. Let me plug it in. And it's set for, it's also set for no, it's not set. It's set too deep. So I have to reset the, so what I need is a piece of the holly. And now I'm going to stuff to get old. There. And now what I'm going to do is I've got to back this up. In fact, and this is just finger sight. This is a vernier adjustment that you have. So I'm going to get it close, and then we'll use the vernier to get it just right. So I'm going to make this just the just a hair less than the thickness of the holly. Oh, that looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. So it'll be good enough for this. So now I got the right depth. So be sure you get the right depth. Now I'm going to just hollow that out. So we got it close. Now, you can take your little chisel. I should use the. I use the Lee Valley one. Yeah, just to show you how it works. And see, now you can go across here. Go, just push in there, and hopefully you'll get. If it doesn't come up like that, see, that didn't quite come up, so I need to take the X-Acto knife now and cut down there a little bit.
Yeah, you ever use a router plane in there, Bruce?
I sure do. I was just waiting to get that out.
Well,
It's not a good idea to try to wedge it, try to lift it out, you know, split it out, because you'll ruin your edge.
Didn't you say you had a small chisel here earlier?
I'm sorry?
That small chisel?
I have it back.
Yeah, could that work?
Oh yeah, I use that too. These they're both I was trying to. I was. What did I do with it? I thought I put it back in there.
Your batteries on, your flashlight's on too.
Oh, shit, yes. Oh, here it is. Here. Yeah, you can use your little your little chisel. And it's sometimes it's easier once you've got it cleaned out. You can cut down easier because there's no wood pushing against you. See, so you can get a better cut down on that edge there. See how you want to have that nice and straight, vertical. And you mentioned the router plane. I think I have one here.
ooh, you got the fancy ones.
Now what's going on?
Bruce, are you sponsored by Veritas?
Oh.
Yeah, right.
No. So this is probably just about right. Yeah, that's pretty close. See, yeah. And so you can, that's good for getting into these edges here too. See, it works good cutting up to those edges because it's just the right depth, and you'll cut in there. Let's see how this comes with this. Well, that's getting there pretty close.
Yeah, he's gone to his home in, where is it, Northwood, New Hampshire. It's a very small shop up there.
Matt's still there, isn't it?
I'm sorry?
Matt's still there.
Oh, yeah, Matt Waiter.
Is
Alfred,
Roger still there?
oh, yeah, Roger's got two shops, I think. He's got that whole shop.
Okay.
The storage.
It's-
Tom
it's-
said there was a lumber store up north, I think he just sold it. Anybody familiar with that? No?
Whereabouts, what city?
I wanna say it was like where Waterville, where's the end of Waterville
All right, let's see if how that fits.
Moment of truth.
Roger doesn't connect clock either. He did the string one time.
Yeah,
He had clock on string.
yeah, I think,
That's what he was working for, Good Craft.
yeah, he was doing it in the back there. He also did it.
Well, he did it up in,
What's the woodworking school up there?
Homestead,
What is it?
Homestead.
Homestead.
He was teaching there.
Yeah, I think he's teaching at Homestead, because I took a class at Homestead.
but he had a demonstration on string.
We took a class in string, and he had sample legs.
Okay, here's my bevel gauge, which I have set for 30 degrees.
Get this back.
So now I put this on here. Put the gauge right at the top of the previous pedal. And I draw a line. So that's where the pedal's supposed to go. So now I gotta look for 720. Well, I use my 720 gauge.
Oh, that's your.
So I got now. Wait a minute. I drew it with the 30 degrees, only I drew it 60 degrees. So now the 720 should work. Start here. Yeah, and there. And there we go. Just repeat the steps.
So when you put the dot on, when you're done with all three?
Yeah. Actually, I did them all before I put the dot on. After I have them, I leave a little space here between them, even on either side. And I look at it this way to see I'm covering both of the ends, and then just a little notch. And I use the I say it, Lee Valley Brad Point drills. I have the set. There's a set. It's like,
Fish,
huh?
fish bits?
Well, I'm not familiar with others, other brands, but
Fish is supposed to be the German ones, the best.
Is it fish or fish?
Fish, maybe it's fish.
Very familiar with the band, they're very nice.
That's how much beer you drink.
Yeah.
okay. So that's cut.
Bruce, we got a little bit of blood there too. See the blood?
Oh, yeah.
The Roy Underhill effect.
Oh. Okay. So now I'm just gonna route this out. When I get down to doing this, the smallest ones at the bottom, I switch over to the 32nd inch bit to route it. So now we can just chisel this out, clean this out. This one looks a little better.
You got a pretty steady hand here.
little drop of glue. And we stick it in.
Are you using super glue instead of yellow glue?
I'm just using super glue today. Because now the fact super glue works good. Yeah, I just banged it down there. It'll be all right. Let that dry. I don't see any reason why you can't use super glue. Look, it worked fine. It worked fine for us now. So all we got to do is
What else is thinking?
we'll just pare that off, and that'll be it. You can see here on the leg now where we have the score marks from the gouge, and as I say, we'll just cut that out, deepen them with the X-Acto knife, and cut them out and excavate them to set in the pedal using the router as we did before. Generally, I use a 1/32 inch router bit on the smaller pedals. Okay. Now that we have the marks from the gouge, we can take the X-Acto knife and can score it and dig down in deep in order to set the walls for the excavation. The trick here is the fact that we use the dividers to both set the length of the pedal in the cutout and the length of the excavation will mean the pedal will fit exactly into the excavation at an intermediate size. And so all you need to do for any length of pedal is just find a gouge that's a little bit smaller, a little bit bigger, find a gouge that's a little bit bigger, and then use a millimeter scale to set the size that you actually want. The bell flowers, as they move down the leg, gets progressively smaller. And so we need progressively smaller petals as well. Unfortunately, with the available gouges, we have 25, 20, 18, and 14 millimeters. And so that's the only size petal you can cut by just using the entire gouge. But in between, we need other sizes. For example, with the 18 as the main pedal, a 16 millimeter pedal would be a nice fit. And let me show you how we cut that. You start by setting a set of dividers to 16 millimeters. So let's get that done. So we have the dividers set at 16 millimeters. Now I take the piece of holly that I want to gotta cut off a piece here. Now we take the dividers and we make two marks, which are now 16 millimeters apart. And I'll just take my pencil and make those little brighter so you can see. Those two dots are now 16 millimeters apart. And now I'm going to take my square and draw a line across at each dot. So now we have a pair of lines that are 16 millimeters apart. Now the next largest gouge is the 18. So I'm going to take the 7/18 and now I'm going to make a cut with that. You see now we have a 7/18 gouge, but it goes a little bit beyond the lines. And so now what we do is we just turn this around, put the gouge at the line where the lines intersect that original cut, and now we have a pedal that's 16 millimeters long. In order to fit it into the leg, I'm going to first put on the 30-degree line that the pedal was going to go at. So I'm just going to put that on there. So there's a 30-degree line is on there. And now I take my dividers and I put those on that and make the mark for the end of the pedal. So now we have the dividers set both the length of the pedal and the length of the excavation that we're going to need. Now, we start by taking the gouge and putting it on those 2 points. And you're going to push down and you'll make a mark for those, for that line. Turn it around the other way and any questions? Any questions about the...
You know, Steve Latta takes the miter plane of the router plane, thank you. And he files one of the smallest points down to a spear point,
Right.
and he uses that for clean out.
I have extra blades for this plane. If you, I think I said get an extra blade in the tools, and you can grind it down to a point. Yeah, I got the extra. What happened was I bought the extra blades, and then I lost them. What I'm doing is I can't find them. When I was all done, I found them. So I didn't.
That's never happened to me.
So anyway, yeah, no, that little router plane. Yeah, pass that around so people take a look at it if they haven't seen that. That's one of Veritas's miniature tools. And I have their miniature. I have 2 or 3 of them, but I have the one that's the shoulder plane. And you know what that's really good for? Well, that table doesn't have legs, but I made a table. I have a table in my apartment where I have reeded legs. Well, shaping those little tiny reeds for that little mini plane, boy, you clean those up like nothing. Of course, they're pretty good because I made a jig to make those reeds with on the, a router on the lathe. It really worked good. Phil always likes to scrape them, and I made the leg in 3 parts. So the center part with the reeds had a dowel turned on each end, which doweled into the other turnings the other way. So you get a perfect joint where they go right up because they're just clean, bingo. So that's it. So this ought to be dry enough now. Let's just pair that and see how it came out. Sometimes just take a little, don't try to take the whole thing at once. You just take a little corner.
You need Phil's half-inch paring chisel.
I'm sorry?
Remember Phil had that famous half-inch paring chisel that he made out of a
Yeah.
plane blade? And it was very low angle. He used it a lot. Phil Lowe, yeah. Great guy.
Well, this is just my regular chisel. I've gouged this up a little bit here, but it cleans up a little bit. Okay. Here, now we'll pass this around, and you can see. And what you want to look at, you'll notice how the shading of the center one, see the shading on that center one, gives you a nice sharp corner where the angled one comes in. You know, get a nice color there. So that's good. Yeah, pass that around. I can look at it. So that's how it's done. So I expect you're all going to make a table now, and you can read my article on how to build a table, and now you know how to do the.
We'll have them done next week.
Bruce, how many hours you think you got here?
Well, you know, I figure I had Because I spent a lot of time practicing to do that. I didn't just sit down and cut those right out. You know, I tried different things and try this, try that. So I have, you know, I said it took 24 hours to do those flowers. I probably got maybe 5 days, 5 full days of experimentation, of cutting and practicing different techniques until it came out right, getting the sand shading to come out just right. And the rest of the table, the rest of the table, we did in the class. I could probably do the rest of the table. Is not that hard. You could probably do it in a week, basically full time.
Bridle joints are pretty tricky.
They are, but if you follow if you use the jig, they come out pretty easy. There's just some techniques for cutting them, which are all described in the article.
Where is your article gonna be in the next,
I sent it to Jim, so it's going to be in the journal that comes out at the end of this year, I suspect.
I was making my table parallel with
The holes in the leg for the berries now.
The holes in the legs, I eyeball them. Here, let me show you. I'll show you the drill.
Bruce, thank you, I gotta run.
This is, okay, that's a 5/32 drill, and that is within a couple of thousandths of 4 millimeters. So if you look at that drill, you'll see it's got 2 nice sharp wings on it to cut that brad point. These are really good brad point drills. They're worth every penny. They cut a perfectly straight, clean hole. And so what I do, I got it in the drill, and I got the drill down, you know, almost, I set the table height, so I'm only maybe 1/8 of an inch above the leg. So I can look at the drill. I say, is it in the center? You know, I can move it side to side to get it centered. And I look around the corner. Is it touching the top and bottom, the 3 millimeter that I left there? Is it covering that? And I get it like that, and then I just go, shh. Just a little. Shh. You don't have to go over. Well, you can. I drilled it a little deeper, and it's all right. You can push the little disc in. It doesn't have to bottom out. You know, it just glues around the edge because it fits perfect. And so you just have. If you look, you'll see 1 or 2 of those are a little bit off center. If you look real careful.